Welcome to today's deep dive. Our mission today is to unpack the heavily contested, absolutely mind-bending truth of what the Artemis crew actually saw on the dark side of the moon. And we are pulling directly from a massive data leak, which was spearheaded by that explosive April 24, 2026 article by Eli McGovern. He's the senior science editor for the Astrophysicists Herald.
We should probably address how a leak of this magnitude even happens, because you would think it involves, I don't know, a team of international cyber mercenaries bypassing NASA's mainframe or something. But it doesn't. Someone literally left a sticky note with a password written on it in a Johnson Space Center break room.
A sticky note. Billions of dollars in aerospace engineering. Just defeated because someone didn't want to memorize a 12-character password.
Exactly. And that one misplaced sticky note unlocked 400 pages of mission logs and just terabytes of unedited 8K video files.
And what's inside those files completely shatters our understanding of our nearest celestial neighbor. I mean, if the moon isn't a desolate wasteland of gray craters, we have to ask, what exactly was waiting for us in the dark?
Right. And to understand that, we really need to look at the mechanics of the Artemis orbital path. Like, if we pull from Commander Reed Wiseman's mission log from April 6th, the Orion capsule is swinging around the far side of the moon. They clear the lunar limb at 4 a.m. Houston time. Now, geographically, they are positioned over the Aitken Basin, which geologists have universally agreed is a massive shadowed depression in the lunar crust.
But Wiseman's log doesn't describe a shadowed basin at all. He writes that the crew was suddenly blinded, and not by orbital sunrise, but by the glare of thousands of high-pressure sodium street lamps.
Yeah, which is just insane to even read.
Totally. And think about the engineering panic here. Star trackers, which use the faint light of distant constellations to calculate pitch and yaw, they completely fail.
Oh yeah, they get completely washed out by a neon sign the size of a city block.
Right. And the sign literally says, moon-sized mattress firm.
And the leaked documents refer to this area not as the dark side of the moon, but as the dark side estates.
The dark side estates.
Yeah, it isn't a geological formation at all. It is a sprawling, mid-century, modern suburban development.
I am looking at the descriptions of the terrain right now, and it's just jarring. Like meticulously manicured Kentucky bluegrass, lime green stucco ranch houses.
And if there's grass and stucco, there has to be an environment supporting it.
Exactly. Wiseman notes they actually detected an atmosphere, but it doesn't smell like, ionized cosmic dust. According to the internal atmospheric sensors, it smells exactly like fresh linen Febreze.
Which implies a highly sophisticated closed-loop atmospheric containment system. We'll get into the structural engineering of how they actually maintain that in a vacuum shortly. But the sociological profile of the inhabitants is where this leak gets truly surreal.
Right. NASA analysts have dubbed them lunar Floridians. But why are they there? I mean, if you have the technology to manipulate an atmosphere and build entire cities on a barren rock, you have to be a Type 2 civilization. Why park yourself practically in Earth's driveway?
Well, the historical logs intercepted during the flyby clarify their motive perfectly. It has nothing to do with fleeing war or famine or a dying star. These lunar Floridians fled Earth millennia ago specifically to escape our lax zoning laws.
Wow. So it's essentially a giant cosmic gated retirement community. They literally achieved interplanetary travel just to make sure nobody painted their house the wrong shade of beige.
It is the ultimate manifestation of regulatory control. I mean, they isolated themselves entirely to perfect their environment without any outside interference.
Which makes me wonder, if you drive a loud truck with a busted muffler through a quiet subdivision here on Earth, someone's going to call the cops.
Right, of course.
So what happens when you fly a multi-ton chemical propulsion rocket over a highly regulated gated community in space? Like, how do these lunar Floridians treat uninvited guests hurtling through their airspace?
Well, as the Artemis crew found out, the protocol for first contact is just overwhelmingly bureaucratic. The capsule wasn't just casually observing this suburban utopia.
No, they got pulled over, basically.
Yeah, they were actively intercepted and pulled into what the internal NASA documents call a compliance orbit.
A compliance orbit? I love that. And they were surrounded by a fleet of dark gray ships.
The leaked files describe the interception vessels as heavily resembling 1998 Mercury Sables.
A 1998 Mercury Sable.
Yes, which is such a brilliant, aggressive commitment to the mundane. It's like the aerodynamically optimal shape for their specific aesthetic. It just projects absolute neutral middle management energy.
It really does. And Dr. Karen Hatcher, who is NASA's lunar logistics coordinator, she confirmed the authenticity of this entire encounter. She noted that the crew initially braced for this grand alien greeting.
Right, like a profound exchange of prime numbers or musical tones or something.
Exactly. But instead, they get a summons. And the mechanism of this summons is just staggering. The aliens used a high-intensity tractor beam.
Which is wild to think about.
Right. Think about the physics for a second. You have a fragile aluminum spacecraft moving at thousands of miles an hour. Do you realize the localized gravitational manipulation required to project a tractor beam just to apply a piece of Scotch tape to the Orion's heat shield?
It is a flex of unimaginable physics. I mean, they could have crushed the Orion capsule like a soda can or completely disintegrated it at the atomic level.
And they didn't.
No, they used a mastery of quantum gravity to do the equivalent of leaving a passive-aggressive parking ticket under a windshield wiper.
And the penalties on this citation are genuinely terrifying. The United States government was fined 4.5 million galactic credits.
Ouch.
Yeah. And Eli McGovern calculates that based on the requested conversion rate, that is roughly 140 trillion US dollars.
Unbelievable.
And the charges listed on the ticket: operating a non-aesthetic vehicle in a quiet zone, and excessive use of external thrusters after 9 p.m.
A 9 p.m. noise ordinance in the vacuum of space. You know, it's just so funny because humanity spent decades preparing for first contact. We send out the Voyager Golden Record with greetings in 55 languages.
We expected this majestic meeting of the minds, a grand philosophical awakening.
Exactly. And what humanity actually discovered is that the universal constant of advanced civilization isn't enlightenment at all. It's rigid HOA compliance.
So if their first contact protocol is literally handing out a noise complaint, what does the rest of their society say about their priorities?
Well, the leaked 8K video footage provides a really clear picture of that, and it forces us to completely recontextualize the lunar landmarks we thought we understood.
Oh, absolutely. Like the monolith, for example.
Yeah.
We all know the imagery from Stanley Kubrick's 2001.
Right, the sleek prehistoric space marker catalyzing human evolution.
Yeah, but the actual 400-foot monolith on the dark side of the moon isn't a Stargate. According to the leak, it's just a massive directory for a shopping mall called the Crater at Endymion. And this mall features a flagship store that literally exclusively sells various shades of gray paint.
And then we have the domes. You brought up the Febreze atmosphere earlier.
Right, how are they keeping that air in?
So the dark side is actually covered in a network of invisible pressurized domes. These structures provide both a breathable atmosphere and artificial gravity. But the engineering specs in the leak show the gravity isn't actually calibrated for biological necessity at all. The documents specify the artificial gravity is heavily adjusted solely to ensure that lawn ornaments remain upright during solar flares.
You have got to be kidding me. They mastered artificial gravity, building a structural shell capable of deflecting coronal mass ejections just to protect their plastic flamingos.
Apparently so.
Okay, what about the craters? The impact basins, we've been looking at those for centuries.
Not meteorite impacts. The leaks classify the craters as failed attempts at building swimming pools.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and it seems the silent majority of these lunar Floridians spend their weekends power washing their driveways with liquid nitrogen.
Hold on, I have to step in here because this creates a massive scientific paradox. Geologists have bombarded Apollo moon rock samples with mass spectrometry for over half a century.
Right.
Are you telling me an isotopic signature for primordial lunar rock is identical to a bag of commercial landscaping gravel? We would see the synthetic manufacturing process in the crystal structure of the regolith. How did Earth's brightest minds spend 50 years missing this?
Well, it seems impossible until you realize just how confirmation bias operates on a planetary scale. There's an anonymous MIT researcher quoted in the leaks who explains it perfectly.
Oh, what do they say?
Basically, we calibrated our entire understanding of primordial rock based on those very samples brought back in 1969. We thought we were looking at dust from the dawn of the solar system.
Well, we weren't.
No, we were actually just cataloging the standard industrial byproduct of a Type II civilization's concrete mixer.
Wow. So the scientific baseline itself was flawed from the start. Because we expected ancient regolith, we defined those specific driveway gravel metrics as ancient regolith.
Precisely. And this MIT researcher realized the giant impact hypothesis, the idea that a Mars-sized body crashed into Earth to form the moon.
Right, the standard model.
Yeah, that is completely wrong. The moon was actually flipped by a group of intergalactic real estate investors.
Flipped? Like a house?
Exactly. They viewed Earth as a fixer-upper and the moon as the detached mother-in-law suite.
Which means all of our historical lunar data is basically just property maintenance records.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, but what about the polar ice deposits? NASA literally just spent billions developing extraction plans for that lunar water.
Oh, the polar ice deposits are real, but they aren't ancient comet impacts. The HOA records reclassify them as faulty outdoor irrigation systems. Sprinklers that have been broken and slowly leaking for the last 3 million years.
Okay, if the truth is this glaringly obvious, like if there are literal neon signs washing out star trackers and leaky sprinklers at the poles, it raises the biggest question of all. How did we not see this on the live feeds? How did NASA manage a $40 billion cover-up of a cosmic suburb?
Well, it basically comes down to real-time rendering and just sheer panic. The leaks include an internal email chain from NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman.
And what does he say?
He lays out the financial reality plain and simple. If the United States Senate finds out they are spending $40 billion to go to a place that already has a Starbucks and pumpkin spice lattes, they will cut NASA's funding to zero.
Oh, instantly.
Right, and they'd probably just hand the budget to the National Park Service instead.
The panic makes total sense. I mean, the Artemis program is already heavily scrutinized for being over budget. If they admit the moon is private property, it triggers an intergalactic legal battle that the Department of Justice is absolutely not equipped to handle. How did they pull off the illusion?
So NASA's visual effects department developed this proprietary AI software that is capable of real-time 8K reality manipulation. As the live feed came in from the capsule, the AI algorithm systematically scrubbed the mid-century modern homes, the stucco, and the manicured lawns.
And replaced it with rocks.
Exactly. It rendered generic craters and convincing shadows over the suburban sprawl at 60 frames per second.
Think about the computational power required to do that seamlessly. They were projecting an interactive geological deepfake to the entire world.
And they didn't just do it for the video feeds. You know the Earthrise photo?
Of course.
Well, in the original unedited negative, there was a giant inflatable tube man advertising a closeout sale on anti-gravity recliners right in the foreground. They literally had to AI erase an inflatable tube man just to preserve human dignity.
That is wild. But, hearing all this, Dr. Hatcher's psychological analysis of the cover-up makes a lot of sense. She points out that you simply cannot conquer a frontier that already has a 24-hour fitness center and strictly enforced parking policies.
Exactly. It really strips away our entire identity. Humanity's pioneer spirit requires a desolate frontier.
Right. We want to be the rugged explorers, taming the wild unknown. Discovering that space is just another suburb basically makes our grand cosmic ambitions look really small and, honestly, incredibly intrusive.
We definitely need the illusion of the void to feel significant. But unfortunately for NASA, thanks to that sticky note password, the illusion is completely shattered.
The unedited files are out there.
Yeah, everyone knows now.
Which brings us to the fallout. I mean, imagine you're a taxpayer driving to work right now listening to this, and you find out your tax dollars are essentially funding intergalactic HOA disputes.
People are not happy.
Not at all. The public reaction has been chaotic, and NASA's official response has honestly only made it worse. They issued this single-sentence statement that was bizarrely defensive. It read, "We do not comment on leaked documents, especially those that suggest the moon has a competitive pickleball community." And the public is furious. Down in Florida, protesters have literally chained themselves to the gates of the Kennedy Space Center.
I saw the photos. The signage is incredible.
It really is. Because people aren't protesting alien existence, right? They are protesting the zoning laws. You have people holding signs reading, "Leave the moon's lawn alone," and "My tax dollars, their covenants."
But honestly, the protests are just a PR nightmare. The real devastation is happening to the timeline of space exploration itself.
Right. What's happening with the future missions?
The Lunar HOA formally denied NASA's application for temporary structure placement.
An application.
Yeah. They evaluated the design of Blue Origin's Blue Moon lander, looked at the engineering specs, and rejected it entirely because the gold thermal foil was deemed tacky.
They denied a multi-billion-dollar lunar landing purely on aesthetic grounds. Humanity's grand expansion into the cosmos isn't being blocked by the limits of thermodynamics or the harshness of the cosmic void. It is being blocked by our inability to meet basic intergalactic aesthetic standards. Isn't that just hilarious and tragic at the same time?
It is. It is a radical redefinition of the Fermi paradox. For decades, scientists have asked, if the universe is so vast, where is everybody? Well, we finally have the answer. They are right there. They just think our spaceships clash with their vinyl sightings, so they ignore us.
It really is the ultimate irony. There's a sociologist, Dr. Linda Voss, who sums it up perfectly in the McGovern article. We spent our whole history looking up at the stars, terrified of the dark, wondering if we were truly alone in the universe.
And we aren't alone. We just have neighbors who get incredibly hostile if our trash cans stay out past Tuesday.
Which fundamentally changes the way you have to look up at the night sky. The next time you walk outside, look at the moon, you aren't looking at a silent, ancient, cratered rock. You are looking at a hyper-advanced community that is currently looking down, very concerned about the height of your grass.
It entirely removes the romance. That whole triumph of human engineering against the void is actually just us being the rowdy teenagers revving our loud engines in a quiet residential cul-de-sac.
And it leaves me with one final, deeply unsettling thought to mull over. If that MIT researcher is right, if these intergalactic real estate investors really viewed Earth as a fixer-upper and the moon is just their detached mother-in-law suite, who exactly owns the deed to Earth? And more importantly, are we currently violating their zoning laws? Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. See you next time.